It's PHNX Suns. I'm Eric Ruby, and boy, do I feel weird today. Hello, psychos and sickos, and all of you who probably should be put away for being Suns fans. I'm Espo. That is Stephen. That is Gerald, and this is the PHNX Suns show, and it is a trade machine Tuesday. We got the Gooch, Noah behind the Mac, and we are ready to roll here. Before we get into trades, though, can we talk a little about the draft lottery?
Yeah.
I know you guys were on set for it. Is the NBA rigged, and does it matter if it is?
Stephen, I'll defer to you on this one.
Gerald, I'll defer to you on this.
Well,
We're going to play ping pong.
look, honestly, I really don't care.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
I mean, that was the peak entertainment value.
It was.
And people are like, oh, the draft lottery is broken, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think you either keep it like this because it creates all this insanity and intrigue, or you say, you know what? The lottery goes away. All 30 teams are going to get the same odds, and we're going to let chaos reign.
I hate that. Chaos is already reigning. Like this is the whole point of the lottery reform, that they flattened the odds in the first place. It was to discourage teams from tanking, teams like the Wizards and the Jazz and the Hornets that have been bad for multiple years in a row now, telling them like, okay, you can be bad, but if you're going to continue to be bad, like your odds of getting that number one pick are not as great as they used to be in the past. And that opens up the door for this chaos that we're seeing. Obviously, I'm not going to push back on people that say that it's rigged because of the Mavs winning after making that Luka trade. Like the whole Nico Harrison meme of him like looking at the camera. It feels very funny. It feels a little suspect. They do release the video of the balls being selected. I know that's not going to deter anyone from thinking that it's
Come
rigged.
on, Gerald, you can weight those things. They could be magnetic. Like there's all sorts of things they could do.
I don't know. I don't know if it's rigged. I don't even care if it's rigged. I think this is what 29 out of the 30 owners in the league voted for. They voted to flatten these odds so that you couldn't tank and get a better pick. And we're starting to see now over these last couple of years that it's led to, like last year, the Hawks getting the pick despite having similar odds. Now the Mavs, despite it coming after the Luka trade. So it is weird. It's a lot harder to fight people who believe that it's rigged because of results like that. But whether it is or not, it's doing what most people wanted it to do.
I love the idea that Adam Silver was in some dark alleyway right before the trade deadline with Nico Harrison going, if you do this to make them Lakers ratings higher, I'll give you the number one pick. Like it's just it's ridiculous. It's asinine.
It's ridiculous that you can be, how can I say this politically correct? You can be terrible at your job.
Yes.
And your ultimate reward within months of being terrible at your job is being gifted one of the most successful and most talented, most complete prospects to come to the NBA.
Yeah.
In history.
If it's rigged, it's annoying, and if it's just a cruel twist of fate, also annoying.
Exactly.
Exactly. Which I find hilarious either way, quite frankly.
You live for the chaos.
I mean, honestly, why are we watching sports if it's not for the absurd to happen, right? Unfortunately, it doesn't happen in a positive way here in Phoenix, and that's why on a Tuesday, we're sitting here with another Trade Machine Tuesday. The wild and wacky version, is that fair to say, Gerald?
Yes, that is very fair to say.
Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing. I wouldn't be me if I didn't mention this part. For the taking teams, how does it feel? Is it worth it? Are you going to continue to try these things? Because you just lost to a team that just made the most boneheaded trade in the history of basketball, at least in recent memory. and you have nothing to show for it. Most of those teams don't even have a lottery pick.
Yeah.
Inside the top 5 specifically. Mm-hmm. So is it worth it? And that's the question that I leave that with.
I think the one way to really curb that is if you do it like the second apron, and if you lose, if you're a certain number of games under 500 for a 3-year period, you're freezed out of the lottery.
Yeah.
Like to come up with a way to really disincentivize being bad for a long period of time.
I agree, because fans deserve much better than that. They're spending money on these teams and they're throwing away seasons.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the Suns don't make one of the biggest boneheaded trades of all time. And Gerald, we were talking about the wild and the wacky that you put together today. Talk a little bit about the article that you put on Go PHNX that we're kind of basing all these off of today.
Yeah, I've been working on this one for a while. A lot went into this. I came up with 37 Kevin Durant trades over at gophnx.com. Was originally shooting for 35 for number 35, and then 36 unbothered, and then I just couldn't cut one trade. So now you have 37. There's an extra.
There's one you could have cut in there that made me sick when I read it.
That is fair. There's probably a lot that I could have cut in terms of ones that are going to make people sick. And some of these I understand are far-fetched. Probably not going to happen. The title of the article is Dark Horse Suitors and Crazy 3-Team Deals. So I know that they're not likely. And especially with the NBA draft lottery, I think it's interesting the ripple effect that it's going to potentially have with the Mavs winning, with the Spurs getting the number 2 pick, with Giannis potentially hitting the trade market. Like there's a lot of factors to consider in all of this. So we're just trying to come up with a few trades. We're only going to go through 10 on the show today. But as always, the usual disclaimer, it sucks that we're here. It sucks that we're talking about Kevin Durant being traded as kind of the only potential out for this team to regroup, taking a step backward to take steps forward. This is nothing personal. This is also just kind of a thought exercise to figure out, okay, what's the spectrum of what this team would want, what this team would want, what's allowed under the CBA. These trades are not meant to be exact. They're just kind of meant to paint a picture of what each team could be expecting and what works from a salary standpoint as well.
Well, now that Gerald has laid out the parameters, let's light the house on fire. Are we ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. We've got our first trade that involves the Mavericks, as you talked about, the the draft lottery impacting some of this. So we're looking at the Suns receiving Klay Thompson, Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington, Najee Marshall, and a 2025 first-round pick. Is that the number 1
that
overall,
would be
Gerald?
the number 1 overall pick there.
For Kevin Durant. If you can get Nico Harris to Nico Harris for a second time this year, I'm all in.
Yeah. I brought this one up explicitly for the point that this is not going to happen.
Thanks, Gerald.
Sorry. I think ESPN's Tim McMahon already reported that the Mavs are going to use this pick. They're going to use it on Cooper Flag. They're going to keep it. They're not going to look a gift horse, which is a euphemism there, in the mouth. And the Mavs are a tricky one. So let's say instead of that number 1 overall pick for Cooper Flag, it's like a 2031 first round pick, which is kind of what Dallas has to offer here. Do you consider it if it's that package instead? And the Mavs are tricky because they don't have a lot of, like, they have to throw multiple bodies to stack the requisite salary to make this work. So you're talking about Klay, Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington, and Najee Marshall, and a pick in 2031 for KD.
If they throw in a time machine so Klay Thompson cannot be this version and could be the version 10 years younger, maybe.
I still do it if they throw the 31 pick in there instead of obviously this year's pick, which is just not happening. You get size, you get positional versatility with the likes of PJ Washington and Najee Marshall, both 6'8", 6'9", close to, if not more than 7 foot wingspans, can space the floor, can do things off the bounce too. That's the archetype of players that you want around Devin Booker for the attention he gets, but also to play independent of him as well. I think that part is important. And naturally, Daniel Gafford, a hard-nosed center, underrated amongst the starting center ranks. The Mavericks don't get to the finals last year without him. And he was their home run swing at the trade deadline, largely because of his toughness and the grit. Vertical spacing, great screener. He can do a lot of the things that you need from a center that's going to be starting for a team that would like to get back to a championship round.
Yeah, I think with Klay, he's got 2 years left on his contract, I believe, but it's only like 16, 17 million a season. So it's not terrible money. You could potentially flip him, or you could just use him as a 6-man, because I think he still did hit like 39% of his threes this year. He can still do some things on the offensive end. Gafford and Washington, I think they're 27 or younger, both of them. So they're established players, but still have room to grow, still have room to continue to improve. And Washington coming off a career year. Najee Marshall had a great season as well. On top of that, all of those manageable salaries. I don't hate it. I don't love it either. I think getting a pick is good, but having to wait till 2031 is also tough.
Yeah, I think it patchworks some of the things that you've had problems with, but I don't think it gives you any real answers for the long term, which I think that's kind of the needle you're trying to thread. If you're Brian Gregory, is finding a way to accomplish both things, which we've seen is probably going to be very difficult to realistically do. But I don't know that this would do enough in the present to warrant not getting enough for the future, if that makes sense.
Yeah, this feels like a move like we're trying to be competitive now. It feels like more of a win now type move, even though some of these guys are younger. So that's kind of my qualm is like, okay, what's the plan? How are you going to improve with this being kind of your core moving forward? And I think for Dallas, it's worth asking, like, okay, so they're going to draft Cooper. They've got Derek Lively. They've got Daniel Gafford. They've got Anthony Davis. Like, something has to give with that crowded of a front court. Does Kevin Durant coming into the equation and a center going out alleviate any of that in your minds? Like, can Cooper or KD play the 3 and one of the other play the 4? Like, how do you see that unravel?
I can see Cooper playing the 3 for sure.
Okay.
And then on defense, he plays whatever position you need because he's just that versatile. I think they get to a level of positionless with that group, and you throw Kyrie in there whenever he gets healthy again. And now you start to see a vision for what they might be wanting to put together. My question to you guys, though, is for the Suns. So if they take this trade template and say they execute it, gets across the finish line, what about the moves that the Suns are also going to be making with Grayson Allen or Royce O'Neal, inevitably Bradley Beal as well, and the picks that they got at the deadline, this past trade deadline? That's where I'm curious if there's an in addition to that makes this trade make more sense for them going forward.
Yeah, you would probably need some things lined up because something's got to give when you got Najee, PJ, Clay, Grayson, and Royce. Yeah, you would probably move Royce somewhere. You would probably move Grayson somewhere. Maybe address the point guard spot, hopefully, with one of those trades. And maybe address... I think Daniel Gafford addresses the center spot, but maybe a different center if you still feel you need one.
Yeah, that's the problem here, too, is in what order did all these things happen?
Yeah.
Because you feel like the KD move would be a natural first move, right? But if you don't know what's going on with Bradley Beal, how does that impact what you potentially try to get back? If you don't know these other things, how do you navigate a Kevin Durant trade? And I feel like that's probably the foundation that you build off of as you look at that, and then you make corresponding moves based off of what you're able to get back for Kevin Durant. But timing is going to be interesting because the whole Giannis thing throws all this off. Like, how many teams actually hold back their best offer or what you're hoping for until they find out where Giannis is going, if he's going anywhere?
Yeah.
So how long does it prolong now because of that factor as well?
So you're operating under the mindset that Durant needs to be, if he does decide to go elsewhere, he needs to be the first domino to fall?
I think because that's going to be the largest return you get, right? So then you're going to know, did I fix the present or more the future with that deal? And then what do I need to supplement after that? Because it's the biggest haul you're going to get of any move you make, right?
Yeah.
So I think you base the other moves off of what you're able to get for Kevin Durant.
I would agree with that unless you have like a deal for Grayson or Royce or even Beal lined up that you feel like we have to do this now. But that would kind of have to be like a home run, like no brainer type deal. And I just don't know that that's out there.
And that's my thing, because from the Beal side, it's like with Durant, there's gray area as to whether he's actually going to still go or not yet. So that part needs to be addressed, obviously. But with Beal in particular, it's non-negotiable that he's not coming back for locker room purposes, for on the court fit purposes, XYZ. Issue is if you do get rid of Beal, then you duck the second tax apron, which opens up more optionality trade-wise.
Yes.
With Durant. That's why I think it should be the Beal situation being addressed first, whether it be trade, waive and stretch, et cetera, et cetera.
I think you try for sure.
That's the thing. Try.
Yeah, you got to try with Beal first.
Yeah.
But if you can't, you've got to quickly change lanes because, like we know, a Beal trade that materializing, the odds of that seem pretty low.
Yeah.
So you can't spend your whole summer trying to do that and then miss out on the KD stuff because of it.
Does it alleviate your second apron because you're going to have to take back salary too? You're going to have to navigate it where you take back enough less and then let go of the two guys you got in the Hornets trade, right?
Right. Cody and Vaso, you would cut their 16, 17 million combined in salary. It depends on what you're getting back in a Beal trade for sure, whether you're actually able to trade him or going the wave and stretch route as well. But lots of things to think about. A lot of confusion in the chat. Just wanted to clear it up. I brought this trade up because it's not happening, because they're not getting the number 1 pick. They're not trading Cooper Flag for Kevin Durant. But we have seen a lot of Suns fans already suggesting it. So we wanted to clarify that's just not happening, guys. Sorry.
I don't know. They weren't trading Luka for AD at one point either.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the next one as the Memphis Grizzlies have entered the chat here. This one pretty simple. It's essentially Ja for KD.
It is. And for the Grizzlies to make any type of meaningful change, you look at the structures of their salaries. It either has to be one of Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., or Desmond Bane. One of those three has to go. Desmond Bane probably feels like, I don't know, the most likely option, but for the Suns, why are you making a Kevin Durant trade and the main return you're getting back is another 2-guard? Jaren Jackson Jr., I don't think the Grizzlies are doing that. He's arguably been their best player over the last 2 years. So Ja Morant kind of feels like the one that would be maybe on the table if they're trying to shake things up, just because of the injuries, because of the self-inflicted wounds over the last few years. So thoughts on this one? Because this is kind of a nuclear option here.
I think this deal gives you a shot. And really, when you can do that, that's what you want. Ja's a wild card, right? We know that. And this is going to be the best return in a singular player that you're going to get in a Kevin Durant deal, likely. But you have to know that this identity, this culture that you're establishing, is one that can handle potential distractions, right? Yeah. Because it's almost a given that they will come, whether it's a celebration that that leads to a fine for Ja or whatever the case may be. There's likely distractions. So are you building an ecosystem that can withstand distractions and still win? Because this is a win now and try to win in the future kind of move here, and you're putting everything into one player, which that has its dangers when it's a guy with question marks.
So you pull the pin out of the grenade, and then you toss the grenade, and then you put your hands over it.
I mean, you're essentially pulling a pin out of a grenade when you trade for Ja.
Correct.
So.
Yes.
I think as a template for a player in return, Ja makes the most sense going with Devin Booker, an elite rim pressure guy that also gets to the free throw line a lot, that finishes at the basket efficiently with the volume of attempts he takes from there. Issue is not dissimilar to Beal, is the health part. You have to be available for that value to hit the way that you need it to next to Devin Booker. It can't be Booker's in a major game and his Robin or 1B is not available because of injury, because then it doesn't, the value's not hitting the way that you want it to. I also still have reservations about Ja on the playoff stage.
Yeah.
Because when teams give him unders, he has a response, but that response is not loud enough to where his impact gives him that top 10 reach that his potential suggests.
Right.
So because of that, in addition to the demands that he's going to have on him defensively to uphold, it's a little bit too many question marks for me to say yes to that trade in particular. So for Ja, I would say no. I like the template for style of player, but for the specific player here, I wouldn't do it.
I think there's too much risk involved between the injuries, between what we've talked about, some of the off-court stuff that has led to him being suspended. And I think for the Grizzlies, like, I think if you're the Suns, you would obviously prefer JJJ back. But looking at salary, even if the Grizzlies were crazy enough to do something like that, looking at the salaries, you would have to throw like Brandon Clark on there, Zach Edey, and John Conchar just to make the salaries match. That's 4 players for Kevin Durant. I don't see them doing that, especially when they just drafted Edey, when it would involve a useful role player like Clark. That feels like too much. So Morant feels like the most realistic option if they were to decide, okay, this isn't working with these 3 guys. We've got to shift something here, bring in a Kevin Durant. They were interested in Jimmy Butler at the trade deadline, so it's not out of the question that they would look at a guy like KD. But in terms of the return, Morant's a little risky for me.
Yeah, and I don't see Ishbia and this new look front office going down this road again. I mean, he talked about it in that press conference, insinuating that they're not going to go big game hunting anymore. This feels like doing what you've done the last few off seasons and hoping you get a better result in it. I don't see them going down that path.
Yeah. I struggle with that. Not your part, Espo, but the Ja part for the on the court things, but you naturally also have to at least entertain the thought of what could potentially come off the court, because it's been a consistent thing each of the last 2 to 3 seasons. So is the juice worth the squeeze is the adage that people use, and I would say it's not in this scenario.
And as Mark R. said in the chat, most importantly, Ja Morant has no ties to the state of Michigan.
This is very true.
That is devastating news.
The 76ers join the party now with this next deal. Gerald just trying to cause aneurysms around Phoenix. It's Paul George and the number 3 pick for Kevin Durant.
I mean, we all hated this trade last time around. Do we still hate it with the number 3 pick?
I hate it less.
I think I just hate it on principle, and I'm not sure why. I'm not sure who hates it more, Philly or Phoenix, but
Philly doesn't. I mean,
trading the number 3 pick for a soon to be 37-year-old is a pretty dicey
That's
move.
the Daryl Morey way.
yeah, but Philly's greasing the light poles so nobody hurts themselves celebrating that they're getting rid of Paul George in this situation. Like I think that's half the battle. Even if they didn't re-sign Kevin Durant, they'd be like, "Holy crap, we got rid of Paul George. We're winning. Woo!" Like, I think that's how they'd feel about it. Look, for me, if you take out the number 3 pick and you drop Kevin Durant and you give me Bradley Beal, I at least listen to that, because
Beal for Paul George.
Yeah,
I think that was the first rendition of it, was Beal for Paul George.
I'm like, yeah, I'll trade my problem for your problem. We'll see if either of us wind up any better.
It's an extra year of problem.
At this point, I mean,
it's an extra year of problem.
Yeah, but then we get the fun drama of Book and Paul George.
Oh, good, just what
roster.
This franchise needs.
Drama. We need the drama. I assume you're a no on this one.
I'm a yes on this. Actually,
yes.
Yeah, because if Philly is dumb enough to give up the number 3 pick in this draft, you don't have to use it.
Yeah,
that's something that you can instantly flip for something else if you don't see value in that number 3 pick.
Yeah.
It's fair.
You might have to attach the number 3 pick to be able to trade Bradley Beal. So that gives you so many more options than you actually have at your disposal.
Oh, no. Could you imagine if that's Brian Gregory's first move as he trades Kevin Durant for Paul George in the number 3 pick and promptly turns around and trades the number 3 pick with Bradley Beal just to get off that contract? They would burn down the footprint or the PHX arena, the practice facility, and the business offices if that ever happened. Right?
Yeah, that would have been.
But no, brutal. Honestly, if Philly's dumb enough to do it, I would still do this trade though. For the nonsense aside, just to have the number 3 pick and the options that opens up for you. Obviously, he's not going to attach it to use Beal, but just saying for them to have that in their back pocket to use for a player, or to obviously even more so use in any type of trade situations, they might be wanting more talent back.
Yeah.
That gives you a different type of leverage than having the 3 picks that they have right now.
Yeah. And before we go to break, we should note that, like, with all of these trades, we do have to consider, like, Kevin Durant's part in the equation, because he does have that 2-year extension hanging overhead. He could use that as leverage to say, like, okay, I don't really want to go to Philly. So, Philly, if you trade for me, I'm not extending with you. Just letting you know you are trading for a 1-year rental, which naturally kind of suppresses what a team is going to be willing to give up. So there is that card in KD's back pocket if certain teams start calling and he has no interest in playing there.
Is Philly a worse situation, though, because Tyrese Maxey, if Joel Embiid's healthy and then you put KD in there, you no longer have the Paul George part of the equation? I'm not sure it's that bad when you're looking at it, because for Kevin Durant, you're essentially looking for a 2 or 3 year window to maximize your chance to win a title. If Embiid's healthy, that's one of the better people you can pair yourself with.
That if it does doing a lot of heavy lifting, and we've seen his knees buckle under the weight of that which sucks, because Embiid is a top 5 player in the game when he's healthy, and that team was set up for success. If you replace Paul George with Kevin Durant, they're a contender in the East if everyone's healthy. But I just don't know that you can guarantee that with Embiid at this point. And honestly, I think if you're Philly, you think about your future leaning more towards Maxey and keeping number 3 than you do trying to make one last-ditch run at this thing.
Yeah. Oh, everybody buckle up, because if you thought this was crazy, you ain't seen nothing yet. We got 7 more to go on the other side of the break. I got to tell you about our new friends over at Mountain America Credit Union. Everyone needs a checking account. Everyone. Even, you may be stuffing your money under your mattress, but you got other issues if you're doing that. Everyone needs a checking account, and you need one with built-in benefits. And Mountain America's My Style checking account has perks just for you, right? You're going to sign up for an account. You're going to get restaurant deals, all right? I love to eat. That's great. Mobile phone protection. You ever drop your phone and crack it? Yeah, you need that protection. Telehealth access. It's difficult out on these streets. You want that extra health care. Identity protection. If somebody wants to be you, they'll stop them. Loan rate discounts. Everybody wants a loan rate discount. If you're trying to get a house or a car right now, you need it. All right, I'm going to tell you that. Offers on travel and events and so much more. Make My Style your lifestyle at Mountain America Credit Union. Visit macu.com/mystyle to apply. Membership required based on eligibility. Some benefits require no cost registration and activation. Terms and conditions apply, and exclusions apply as well. All right, game time. You know what time it is. It's time to get you some tickets to the events you want to go to this summer, and Game Time has you covered. All right, the NFL schedule drops tomorrow. If you want to go to some Detroit Lions games for some sick reason, like the Gooch behind the Mac, Game Time will help you out. You want to go to some Cardinals games? Game Time will help you out. If you're in the market for Suns tickets that will come out in August, they'll help you out. And free telehealth to get you checked out too mentally. No, I'm just kidding. But Game Time has got you covered. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and then I'm going to give you this. Write this part down. You're going to use promo code PHNX, and you get 20% off your first order. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use PHNX for $20 off. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. And then, you know what? I'm going to give you a little extra here. You can save a little bit more, not just with Game Time, but with us here. It is the spring cleaning sale that we got going on. I went around, I cleaned out the storage unit that we have all our shirts in, and I said, these people need to get some great deals, up to 75% off some of your favorite shirts, hoodies, and hats, but at least 30% off of everything in the locker. So head over to allcitynetwork.com and check out all the merch and save some money today.
It's kind of you.
I mean, I got to do it.
It's very thoughtful.
The people need their merch, and I'm here to just help them get it. You know what? The Suns are trying to save some money by trading Kevin Durant, and we got 7 of these insane deals that Gerald stayed up until 4 a.m. to cook up for you. And the next one is, if I'm correct, a 3-team deal. We're getting into the menage a trade portion of the show. It's Suns, the Rockets, and the Magic here. Gerald is a big fan of a menage a trade. Why don't you walk us through this one, Gerald?
Yeah, so one of the things that we keep coming back to, the Rockets make a lot of sense as a trade partner for Kevin Durant, especially since their pick that's coming from the Suns fell to number 10. It wasn't a top 4 pick, which would have probably made it off limits in a potential trade. And also the Spurs landed the number 2 pick, which makes them a prime contender for Giannis. There are several teams now that you could argue are ahead of the Rockets in that potential pursuit of Giannis, which means that they could be more likely to invest in a KD trade. And if that's the case, the one thing I keep coming back to is Jalen Green doesn't make sense here in Phoenix. He just doesn't make sense as a backcourt partner with Book. So what does that mean? That means if you're the Suns and you want to get a KD to the Rockets deal done, you probably want to loop in a third team to find Jalen Green. So these next couple are going to be all about that. The Suns are getting Jonathan Isaac, Cole Anthony, and Goga Bitadze from Orlando, as well as Jabari Smith Jr. and Tari Eason from Houston. They're also getting their number 10 pick back. Houston's getting KD, and the Magic are getting Jalen Green. Now, there are a couple of questions here. Number one, is this too much for Houston to give up? And number two, do the Magic make sense as a landing spot for Jalen Green? We know they need shooting. We know they need scoring. Jalen Green's not efficient. He does like to shoot. Does putting the ball more in Jalen Green's hands when you have Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner make sense?
Hey, they didn't say they wanted efficient shooting. They just said they needed shooting in Orlando. Look, I think this... I think the Rockets were full of it when they said that they don't want to move on from Jalen Green. It felt like the kiss of death kind of, we got to throw you a bone because you're not happy about hearing your name, which usually is when the seeds of discontent are planted with a player there. So I would not be shocked if Houston offers him up in a deal. I don't think this is too much to get KD if they believe that Durant over the next 3 years truly puts them in contention here. If I'm the Suns, this checks a lot of the boxes, right? It works for now. It gives me some young guys that I hope can grow. It gives me that draft pick this year at number 10 that I hope that I can pick a young guy that actually grows with Devin Booker. I would need Cole Anthony's dad, Greg Anthony, to apologize for the 1993 Knicks Suns brawl that he was a part of. But this one is probably the most intriguing that I've seen, not just today on this, but I've watched your other iterations of KD trades. This one really piques my interest.
I just don't know why Orlando brings Jalen Green into their team context because they have Paolo Banchero, they have Franz Wagner. They don't need another ball-dominant guard that's going to take touches and usage away from them, but also can't play off of them because of the ways the defense will ignore him when he's spaced. That's what makes me hesitate because I just don't see why Orlando says yes to this. I would be curious if a 4-team trade works with this template, though. Same players included, maybe just divvying up who's going where more. If Portland's brought into this mix and Anthony Simons is going to Orlando, I haven't checked it, but I'm just thinking about this off the top of my head. I think that Anthony's the type of guard that both Houston and Orlando will be looking to add to their groups, respectively.
Yeah. And
Jalen Green, obviously, just going to one of the teams, or Portland specifically, makes a little bit more sense for everything that's going on. Just spitballing. But for the Suns, the return here is undeniable. Get a ton of youth. You address multiple positions with size and versatility. There's a ton to build around. Obviously, the pick being heralded more than anything else. You get KD to a deemed destination that he would want to go to. It's good. It's a good bit of business if Orlando is in on this.
I like the Simons idea. Stephen gave me some homework for next week, but that's an intriguing concept. I agree. I think for Houston, you're giving up Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, the number 10 pick, and Jalen Green for KD. That is quite a lot. We should acknowledge that as well, which could be a deal breaker. But maybe if you substitute Tari Eason in Reed Shepherd, maybe I don't know how they value Reed Shepherd. He's a difficult one because number 3 overall pick, lit it up at Summer League, barely cracked their rotation this year because they were good and wasn't very good when he was on the floor. So how do they value him at this point is a big question mark in some of these trades to me.
Yeah, I assume since we're entertaining this, we all feel that Houston was just sending out smoke screens that they're not interested in Kevin Durant.
That's the only way a deal like this would ever happen. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, it would take Houston to be willing to agree to it. We got another 3-teamer with the Rockets, but this time it involves the Nets on this one. And this one's intriguing, but I think less likely.
Yeah, I think the Nets make a little bit more sense to me as a potential landing spot for Jalen Green, just because like they don't have a cornerstone really, unless you want to argue for Cam Thomas, which I personally wouldn't. Cam Thomas and Jalen Green would be a hell of a duo in terms of shot selection. I'll say that. But, you know, Rockets get KD, Noah Clowney, Derek Whitehead. Clowney and Whitehead are younger players who haven't shown a ton in their early time in the league, but they're needed to make the math work there. The Nets get Jalen Green and Reed Shepherd from Houston. The Suns get Nick Claxton from Brooklyn, Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, and that number 10 overall pick. Again, this feels like a lot for the Suns to be getting from Houston, but they are addressing, I mean, Nick Claxton, Jabari Smith Jr., Tari Eason, I can't think of a package that overhauls your defense as dramatically overnight as that one.
Yeah. Do you think the Nets would actually want to be involved in trying to get KD somewhere he wants to go again? This league can be very petty.
If it benefits them. I mean, they got a good deal out of the Kevin Durant trade, so I don't know that there would be hard feelings on their end.
They got 4 picks in the first round right now.
Yeah, they're also probably a little sore that they did that trade with Houston and lost that 10th pick too.
That's true. I think anybody that's in our comments knows how much of a fan of Nick Claxton as I am. Mm-hmm. This is a player that was top 10 or top 5 in Defensive Player of the Year race in his second year, I believe, or third year at the earliest.
Right.
That you don't stumble across players like that often. I think with that 4 picks that Brooklyn has in the first round, I don't think they're trying to pivot in a different direction with Jordi Fernandez. Mm-hmm. Maybe having a taller, more girthy kind of center, I guess, to kind of build around that has a similar skill set to Claxton.
Sure.
I just feel like they would be willing to do without him if they can get something relevant in return. So I think that opens up for plenty of conversations, which we'll get to later. And this would be a very good return for the Suns. Being able to switch 1 through 5 with Eason and Jabari and Claxton with Booker and Dunn and whoever else might be on the team, that's a fun trade. And obviously having the number 10 pick is as valuable as anything.
Yeah, I think all these make some sense for the Suns in the position they're in. It just depends on, does it work for the other two? I mean, look, if the Magic and the Nets aren't, getting going in a 3-way here, how about the Charlotte Hornets as we bring them into the fold in this next one? And you've got Kevin Durant still to the Rockets, Jalen Green to the Hornets, but the Suns wind up with Josh Green, Grant Williams, Jabari Smith Jr., Tyree Eason, their own number 10 pick, and then a 2027 first rounder from the Charlotte Hornets. This one, I like that you're getting 2 picks back because you obviously need to restock the cupboard on that front. But what intrigued you about this one, Gerald?
Yeah, like if you're looping in the Hornets, you're not getting LaMelo Ball for Jalen Green. Sorry. You're not getting Brandon Miller. You are getting salary filler. Josh Green is not terrible. He can shoot threes. He's a young player. Grant Williams, when he's healthy, not terrible. He's an irritant sometimes to even his own teammates, reportedly, but they're mostly there to fill salary. The real benefit, obviously, is Jabari, Tari, and then 2 first-round picks. You're getting your own number 10 back. You're getting a 2027 first-rounder from Charlotte, which, let's be honest, will still have plenty of value by that point in time. The question, again, is this too much for Houston? And for Charlotte, do they have interest in bringing Jalen Green into that young core? Because I think he fits their recklessness pretty well, but I don't think that's a good thing if you're the Hornets.
I don't know. If I'm the Hornets and I'm turning essentially salary filler and a first rounder that you just don't know what it's going to be in 2027, I do that. Again, it just comes down to how interested is Houston in adding Kevin Durant, and are they willing to pay that price in it? And I tend to still think it's probably too much for them to get in this.
I think any trade template, if you get all of the parties to agree to dance with you and you get multiple first round picks and young talent in exchange for KD, you take whatever that you might not want to take back to make that deal work. Mm-hmm. I feel like that part is inevitable and is almost non-negotiable.
Yeah.
So the Jalen Green and Grant Williams part, as players, Jalen Green, I feel, or Josh Green, excuse me. Josh Green is a player that I feel like the Suns could certainly use, but that's not the reason you're doing that trade. And because of that, Grant Williams is CJ McCollum's best friend, and we are not best friends with either of those two for multiple second tax apron issues. But you do that trade because of the latter 4 pieces more than the first 2.
Yeah. I mean, now that James Jones isn't holding the wheel, though, I don't know if Charlotte deals are the one of the only things on the table anymore.
What is that? What's that conversation like when you spin the block for a 3rd time in the calendar year for a team to make a deal?
It goes, "Hi, I'm Brian Gregory. You probably don't know who I am." That's how it starts, at least. We've seen Gerald do quad shots before, but have we seen him do a quad trade? You have once if you stay around after this break. Oh, yes, it is time to talk about Pure Edibles. And after what we've all been through this last season, we all can use a little something to take the edge off. And Pure Edibles was founded right here in Arizona born, and it's available in 130 dispensaries statewide. Fun fact, Eric Ruby's been to each and every one of them. Bet you didn't know that. Pure gummies are not covered in sugar like all of the other competitors, so it's diabetes friendly for this guy here. Pure is a full-fledged candy company offering gummies, kicks, which is their version of Starburst, chews, soft candies like caramel or caramel, however you want to say it, and hard candies. Pure's effects are clearly listed on each, so you know exactly what to expect. And if you've ever gone down that rabbit hole without knowing what to expect, you know the value of that. So Pure was created in Flagstaff at Noble Herb Dispensary, the home of Pure Edibles, and now was made right here in the Valley. They're designed to be ripped or bit in half, making them easily shareable. Although if you bite it in half and you share it, you damn well better be pretty close to who you're sharing it with. And easy to dial in the exact dose you want. So go find yourself some Pure Edible products from one of the 130 dispensaries that offer them across Arizona. And then Circle K. Look, if you have not already become an Inner Circle member, what in the world is actually wrong with you? Because we've been talking about this for 2 years, and all you have to do is download the Circle K app, put your phone number in, which is super easy. You should know that by heart. And then you're in. It's the easiest club you'll ever join, right? And you're going to save money, which most clubs cost you money, all right? You're going to save 5 cents or 25 cents off your first 5 Phillips, then 3 cents on every subsequent gallon that you fill up. And then when you hit the Espo level, 5 cents off. Yes, 5 cents off. You love discount. They give it to you. It is fantastic. And then you're going to get plenty of other membership exclusives. You're going to get offers on things like cookies, things like other drinks. It's fantastic. Become part of Inner Circle. Join Circle for free by downloading Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. That is for the chat there.
I thought I would never hear Nookie Monster again. It was one of those things I had put in the back of my mind, and then you pulled it out, and I was like, oh, that's still here, isn't it?
You know what?
It's still a thing.
Yeah, it is still a thing. And, the next trade is going to get the Nookie Monster.
Is it?
Yes.
I don't know.
Suns, Mavs, and Kings. A lovely 3-way deal. Me love these 3 teams. They're like cookie and milk when you put them together. Gerald, why don't you walk us through this deal?
I love some of the people that are so happy Nookie Monster's back, and some people that are newer are like, what is going on? It's a deep cut for the PHNX diehards. So in this one, the Suns are getting Domantas Sabonis from the Kings. They're getting Najee Marshall from Dallas, and they are getting a 2029 first rounder from Dallas, which is actually the Lakers pick that they owe to the Mavs. The Mavs are getting Kevin Durant, and they are getting a 2025 first rounder from the Suns. So the Suns are sending out their 29th overall pick. The Kings are getting Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, Caleb Martin, Derek Lively, the second from Dallas, as well as the Mavs 2031 first round pick in exchange for sending out Sabonis. So the Kings get their replacement for Sabonis, a much younger replacement, and some decent wings, but mostly salary filler and a pick. The Mavs get a pick in this year's draft, another one, and KD. and the Suns get Sabonis, Marshall, and a 2029 first rounder in a year where they are projected to be sending their pick elsewhere.
Sometimes things are better late than never, and I wanted Domantas Sabonis when it was rumored in a DeAndre Ayton trade that he was going to be part of that. I still like Domantas a lot. Najee Marshall is a nice piece, and then getting any first rounder, as we've talked about, is a win. I don't mind it. I don't think it checks all the boxes that you need it to with what you're trying to accomplish. But if you get into a place where you're going to have to accept good enough rather than good, I think you could do worse than this in a KD trade.
I think you could certainly do worse than getting Sabonis, Marshall, and a 2029 first round pick for KD. For the Suns, you might not find a better center fit next to Devin Booker for the gravity he has, and to be playing in 4-on-3s, 3-on-2s sometimes all game. Mm-hmm. Dude's a walking triple-double. He's like, after Jokic, since Westbrook has regressed in that respect, he is the next in terms of triple-doubles that he compiles. And that impact on offense is something that the Suns would greatly benefit from. Issue is, though, what in the world are the Sacramento Kings? And that's not a question that hasn't been rehashed like 5 times this past 20 years now.
Right. I think that's the reason why I think this trade is realistic, because arguably they're getting a better return for Sabonis than they did for De'Aaron Fox here.
Yeah.
Like, they're getting Lively.
I don't think that's even arguable,
like,
honestly.
They're getting Lively, they're getting Washington, and they're getting a first-round pick that could have value in 2031, maybe not with Flag coming into Dallas. So that's a very good question. I genuinely don't know what they're doing. I don't know what their plan is. I think it has to be in the back of their minds, like, Sabonis is 29. What are we doing here? We missed the play-in. Are we going to restructure and build around Levine and DeRozan and Sabonis, or are we going to start to cash in on value now? That's a question that I think only Sacramento can answer, and I don't think they can even answer it capably. My biggest concern with this trade was the depth that Dallas has to give up, because like we've discussed, if you look at their contract situation, a lot of people are saying they're giving up too many players. They have to if they're trading for Kevin Durant because of the way their salaries are structured, unless Kyrie or AD is involved. After those guys, it's like 16 mil for Clay, 14 for PJ, 9 for Caleb, 5 for Lively. Like, you're going to have to give up 3 or 4 guys if you're the Mavs and you do want Kevin Durant, which is not guaranteed. But.
Yeah, this one is the first one you look across the board and you go, yeah, I could actually see all 3 teams doing this. I get your question about the Kings, and let's be honest, the Kings are going to king, right? Especially if it's true that Vlade is back, in control of the wheel there in some way, shape, or form. You throw in a pack of cigarettes, this bad boy's getting done. I think here, it's going to be a summer where I think the Kings make a lot of moves, and I think it'll be a lot of moves like this. So if you can take advantage of it, why not get in as part of what they're trying to do there?
And to that point, I saw earlier that they're expecting DeMar DeRozan to be on the table from the Kings.
Yeah.
To be trying to move off from him. They need a point guard in some capacity. That did not work after they traded De'Aaron Fox last year. Malik Monk is not a point guard, nor is Zach LaVine. If you take Sabonis from that, on top of that, just don't know what they have planned. So I think they will be getting weird and wonky. And that beam, I hope they didn't invest too much in it because they won't be using it too much the next couple of years.
Who would have guessed getting a bunch of former Bulls wasn't going to work out?
Yeah. When I originally wrote this trade before last night's draft lottery, I had the Mavs 2025 pick going to the Kings, which was projected to be like 11th. And I think that made more sense. Now, if you're replacing it with a 2031 pick for Sacramento, that's a little bit tougher, especially since they just lost their lottery pick because it fell outside the top 12. It was top 12 protected. So I think the pick or the trade made more sense before Dallas randomly jumped to number 1 in the draft lottery.
Well, let's crank up another one involving the Kings, but the Timberwolves have entered the deal as well. So you've got the Suns, Mavs, Kings, and Timberwolves all in a massive 4-team deal. Durant still goes to the Mavs. Gobert, Klay Thompson, Caleb Martin, and a 2031 pick goes to the Kings. The Timberwolves will get Domantas Sabonis and PJ Washington, and the Suns wind up with McDaniels, Marshall, Lively, and that 2029 Lakers pick. I like it for the Suns. I'll say that much.
Jaden McDaniels next to Devin Booker would be a tremendous fit. Like, I know he can't shoot threes. The inconsistency from three has been a problem, but he finds other ways to contribute, and he is an elite defender on the other end. Najee Marshall, I like his game. His three ball has been really inconsistent as well, so that's a problem, but he's just kind of a dog, honestly. Lively, you get the center that you've been needing long-term at the 5 spot, and you get a pick out of it. Again, Mavs giving up a lot of depth. The Kings, God knows what they're doing, but they get a pick out of it. And they get a capable center. Maybe they could try to compete with Gobert, anchoring a defense around Levine and DeRozan. And then the Timberwolves, they're getting out of Gobert's contract. They're bringing in Sabonis to kind of upgrade the offense. PJ Washington is not as good as Jaden McDaniels in my mind defensively, but he's a little bit more well-rounded in terms of the offense. So a little bit of chaos here, a lot of reasons for each team to say no, and a couple reasons for each one to potentially think about it.
This one actually makes more sense if you're the Kings, because it's complete lunacy, which really, I'm like, that feels like a Kings return right there.
Rudy Gobert, can you play point guard? That's probably the question. Sacramento.
You've seen him on the break. We saw him on the break in the Suns Timberwolves series, right?
Shaq gonna have a lot of fun with that if that's what happens.
At this point, who cares, right? Like, if you're the Kings, you're probably tanking at that point.
For sure.
So.
I just don't know if if Minnesota says yes to it, because I can see them wanting to get off of the Gobert contract.
Mm-hmm.
But for Sabonis and the hit that gives a Chris Finch-led team defensively, I don't know. And also, Julius Randle's still there in this situation. He's not obviously included with this trade.
Mm.
How does the front court of Julius Randle and Domantas Sabonis, like, that's all left-hand team
that's a
vibes
lot
that we went back to on Friday.
That's
but
a lot of elbows you're catching trying to guard those guys.
A lot of elbows, literally and figuratively. A lot of elbow jumpers, a lot of elbow play.
I truthfully left them out of this equation just because him and Naz Reid both have player options.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Timberwolves might. Well, it's harder to say now because they're going to the Western Conference Finals since Steph Curry got hurt. Like, I think that series would have been more evenly matched. Now they're going to the conference finals for the second year in a row. So a trade like this maybe is less likely if they're facilitating a KD trade versus potentially trying to land KD.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's crank up the lunacy and check out this Suns Timberwolves Mavs deal. Nico just got really excited when he saw this, because in this deal, the Mavs are getting Rudy Gobert, and as we know, defense is Nico Harrison's kink, so that'll go well. Plus, they get the 2025 Detroit pick. The Timberwolves will get Kevin Durant and Daniel Gafford, and then let me take a deep breath so I can run through all these Suns guys. The Suns get Jaden McDaniel, PJ Washington, Rob Dillingham, Derek Lively II, and Leonard Miller. So it's a hell of a haul.
It is. You don't get a pick, which is problematic. You are kind of banking on Rob Dillingham being good after kind of a up and down rookie year. You are also getting Derek Lively, though. So you are getting two young players that you think can be pretty good. You're also getting guys that are in their mid-20s that are already established. Two solid two-way wings in McDaniels and PJ Washington. Leonard Miller is just there for salary filler because the math does not work without him. I think if you're the Mavs, this makes less sense, but a back line of Rudy Gobert, Anthony Davis, and Cooper Flagg, you are never scoring on that team. Like, if Nico Harrison really loves defense, prove it, man. Make this trade.
Well, that's some dirty talk that Gerald said in Nico's way. He's liking this too much.
He says defense wins championships. Rudy Gobert is a defensive upgrade over both Gafford and Lively. If you're trying to win now, I kind of see it. I think giving up Lively is maybe the step too far for them, because you're like, he's a good young player. He could be their future, and you just got Cooper Lively. Like, maybe you want Lively and Flagg to be your future front court for the next 5 to 10 years. I wouldn't begrudge Mavs fans for not liking this trade for that reason.
Do we really think Nico's thinking 5 years down the line? I mean, he just traded for AD.
That's fair,
right? Like, I think he's thinking, what do the next 2 to 3 years look like? Well, with these guys, and if Kyrie comes back, the way that they hope he does.
He's definitely thinking about defense in those next 5 years. That's for sure. So him getting Rudy Gobert to go with Anthony Davis will make for one most accomplished backcourts or front courts, in the history of the league, just as on paper. And on the court, it's no fly zone in the paint. Yeah. Floaters are getting sent to the upper deck. Dunks are just not happening. Sheesh. That's a lot. I could also see Minnesota saying yes to it for obviously KD, but you get a viable Gobert replacement.
Yeah.
To also open up the books to re-sign Naz Reid as well. And then for the Suns, obviously getting a ton of young pieces makes a lot of sense. I just kind of talked myself into it. Initially, I was no. And now it's like, I don't know. It kind of makes sense. And beggars can't be choosers if you're the Suns. And if KD is saying he wants to leave and he wants to go to Minnesota, you have no leverage. So
you got to get creative because the Timberwolves are tough to make a 1-for-1 trade with in terms of just a 2-team trade. Looping in a third team would really help in terms of what you're able to get out of that situation. So we know Ant loves KD. We know KD loves Ant. If Minnesota is a team that's on KD's list, because I think Mark Stein reported in his recent newsletter that the Timberwolves are going to be a team that will pursue Kevin Durant, despite the fact that they're likely bound for the conference finals. I don't know. It hurts not getting a pick. I will say that. It hurts not getting a pick, but you are getting 2 young players that are basically the equivalent of a first-round draft pick.
Well, and then if you so choose, you can move guys subsequently after that as well if you want to get some draft picks. We've come to the 10th and final crazy trade.
Yes, we have.
Why don't you run us through it, Gerald? I'm gonna hand the baton to you for this one.
All right, so we got Suns, Mavs, Kings, and Timberwolves here. The Suns are getting Sabonis from the Kings, they're getting Dillingham from Minnesota, and they're getting a 2025 first-round pick from Minnesota, which is coming from Detroit, so that's number 17 overall. The Mavs are getting Gobert, they're getting Terrence Shannon Jr. from Minnesota, and they're getting the Suns' 29th overall pick. The Kings are getting Jaden McDaniels, Klay Thompson, Caleb Martin, Derek Lively II, and that 2029 pick from Dallas, which is going through LA. And then the Timberwolves are getting Kevin Durant and Najee Marshall.
I love that in any of these that involve the Kings, you go, what are they doing? And they go, and it's completely plausible.
I mean, like, they get Jaden McDaniels and Derek Lively and a pick. That's better than they got for De'Aaron Fox.
I mean, that's fair, but I mean, if you're basing it on better than what they got for De'Aaron Fox, there's a lot of things that fit into that category. I think you have to believe in Rob Dillingham if you're making this trade.
Yes,
here, and believe that he can really be, one of your guards of the future on this team. Otherwise, the number 17 pick is nice, but it's not game changing. And Sabonis is on a similar timetable to Book, but is that enough to really put you back in a conversation that you want to be? This is. Brian Gregory and that scouting staff would have to love Dillingham a lot.
Yeah, and I just don't know if Rob is that. But again, to the leverage point, if Durant says he wants to go to Minnesota, it's like, all right, well, we got to figure something out. And if this is the best that you can come up with the deadline that they'll be working up against, then obviously even more so if Houston is out of the conversation because Giannis decides he wants to leave and wants to go there, your options are, you're really hamstrung again. And this will be a tough bullet to bite, but that's the dire straits that they're headed towards.
Yeah.
If Giannis decides in this world, I'll play along. Giannis decides Houston is where he wants to go. I think the Spurs become an interesting option in a potential KD deal. By the way, before we finish this discussion and have a surprise trade here from our friend Stephen, if you're watching us on television, head over to gophnx.com because we're going to overtime and the fun will continue there. So I assume the Spurs would become part of the equation at that point, but if they're not and Minnesota is where KD wants to go, I think some of the framework you showed here in these last few deals probably wind up getting it done.
Potentially. I don't know. I like I said, this is a thought exercise meant to challenge and weigh, okay, what would this team want if they were involved in a trade? What works contractually? Because a lot of people are saying, well, the Timberwolves would never give up Jaden McDaniels. If they want Kevin Durant, you only have so many salaries that you can combine to make it happen. And McDaniels is a player that would be coveted. His contract makes a lot of sense. And you've also got the player options for Julius Randle and Naz Reid that are being difficult. I think Julius Randle might opt in, and I don't know what his trade value would be in that case. Naz Reid's probably going to opt out, which would have been nice if he was going to opt in to make his salary $15 million tradable. Instead, he's probably going to opt out and get a payday. So that complicates things further. McDaniels would almost have to be on the table if the Timberwolves do pursue Kevin Durant, which the reports are suggesting that they will. So there's a lot to consider, especially in a 4-team trade. Like 4-team trades are very unlikely. Usually if you get to 3 or 4-team trades, it's usually like one team taking a backup player for a second-round pick or something. Not this crazy. So that's why the title of the show was Crazy Trades, guys.
What's your crazy one, Stephen? Hit us with it.
All right, well, let's have some fun. We are going to start with the Suns receiving Nick Claxton and Jaren Jackson Jr. The Nets would get Brandon Clark, John Conchar, Zach Edey, and a 2025 first-round pick from the Suns. And the Grizzlies would get Kevin Durant and Noah Clowney. So the Grizzlies would get a center replacement in Clowney and obviously Kevin Durant to go with Bane and Ja. The Nets get another pick to add to their 4 picks that they already have. So now make it 5, which might be a record in history in terms of that. And a bunch of salary filler to go forward with. And then obviously for the Suns, you get a 6'10 or 6'11 center with a 7'2" wingspan. And then you get a 6'10 power forward with a 7'4" wingspan. Both would be all defensive team representatives with the Suns. Both would allow for the Suns to play with 5-out spacing. You get multiple screening partners and handoff partners for Devin Booker. You get 2 front court pieces that you can run pick and roll with. And you give yourself a modern template for a roster in terms of how you want to go forward. And obviously with players like Ryan Dunn and also Oso Ighodaro, these 2 players will help them kind of speed up the learning curve with them as well.
If they pull this off, I will personally go build the statue to Brian Gregory out in front of
for sure.
The arena. I will build the Matt Ishbia statue. Sure. I will throw a parade if they pull this kind of heist off in this kind
Matt
of deal.
Ishbia would have to beat you there because he gets another Spartan dog.
Yes, sure. He does. He does.
Sure.
That would be a phenomenal return.
Don't know how realistic it is, though.
Yeah,
I would say that.
Yeah, and I think it's a phenomenal return. You're getting 2 defensive player of the year caliber guys to put around Devin Booker for the future. Like your front court is set for the next 5 years. Brooklyn, I think maybe does it. I think Zach Edey's inclusion helps with that, but the Grizzlies is the part that I'm like, I don't see them giving up that much for KD, which is a problem because like we've talked about in the earlier Grizzlies trade, you have to match the salary somehow. Yep. So Zach Edey would have to be involved if you're starting it with Jaren Jackson Jr. because he doesn't make as much as like Ja Morant or some of these other guys.
Would another pick being involved make it more enticing for Memphis?
If there was another, it depends on the pick. Because if it's coming from Phoenix,
it's coming from the Suns. So
not
that's why
as
I'm
much.
like, I don't know how much more you can ask for. I don't have any more facilities, big dog.
Right. Don't have the faculties for that, man.
Let's be honest, though. If one of these is going to happen for a Michigan State guy, somehow Draymond Green's winding up in Phoenix. Like that's, I feel like that's the way we get down the Michigan State decision tree to get there. Was that the only one, or did you cook up something else in the line?
That was all I had. I would say though, offensively, I know people are talking about the offense in that trade. Jaren Jackson Jr. was an all-star largely because of his offense this season, even more so than his all-defense caliber defensive disposition. So I think people are sleeping on him as a number 2 option in an offense with Devin Booker leading the reins. I think that's a hand-in-glove fit in multiple respects.
He averaged 22 a night on 37% shooting from 3, taking like 5 attempts. And we saw when he played the Suns how much he bullied people.
Yes, and his floater is arguably the best in the league. It's up there with Visa Zubac, Isaiah Hartenstein, Nikola Jokic.
Right.
That's a functional shot that adds to the 3-point shooting and all of his abilities to put the ball in the deck. So
we've also seen a team built predicated on offense, and I'm turning into Nico. I think defense is intriguing.
Defense is the way to go going forward.
I got a couple super chats before we get out of here. This Ain't Mike says, McDaniels and Booker is a generational talk. That's 100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I guess that kind of falls in that hard nose, like some of those buzzwords we've heard about what they want with this team. That backcourt certainly would fit.
They would have some fun at practice.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Oh man,
yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
Veron also with the super chat says Fred VanVleet and Eason with the 10th pick for KD. I believe you had something similar in one of your other ones. With
so for those who are confused about the audacity of some of these trades, this was the crazy rendition. Weeks ago, we went through more logistical trades for Kevin Durant that make more sense. We went through Rockets trades. We went through Heat trades. We went through kind of the main contenders, Spurs, Timberwolves, Knicks, teams that are going to be expected. This week was more dark horses and off-the-wall ideas. But yes, like VanVleet's salary, the Suns would obviously have to take on that team option for like 41 mil or whatever it is. And I think the math works on that one. That's a more realistic type of offer. We have covered a couple of those in recent Trade Machine Tuesdays, just as a heads up.
We should have entitled this episode The Audacity of Cope. That's what we should have titled it. That is another Trade Machine Tuesday in the books. For the Gooch behind the Mac, for Gerald, who you can follow at Gerald Bourget, for Stephen, who you can follow at Stephen PG3. You can follow me at Espo. You can follow the show at PHNX_Suns. And you know what? It's been fun sitting back in this seat, but I don't miss talking about the Suns all that much. Ahoy, hoy!
We all silly like the mayor.